I think a lot of nutrition advice, diet advice, medical advice, it's about changing the future, and it's about changing today and the future. And there's a problem with that because we can't change the future if we don't understand the past. We can't understand how we do anything unless we know why we are in the situation we are in.
Welcome to the Beautifully Becoming community. This is a sacred space for honest, faith-rooted conversations that encourage healing, inspire growth, and help you step into the person God is shaping you to be.
Today's episode is totally different from what you've always heard. I have an incredible guest. I have a scientist, guys. Yes. So I have a scientist, a nutritionist, and he is also the podcast host of How Not to Get Sick and Die. Wow. I've listened to a few of your episodes. It is top-notch. It is incredible. I love it. And guys, in today's episode, I have this guest. His name is Murray Linsdale. He is actually going to be, opening our eyes. He's going to be debunking a lot of things. He's going to be showing us, teaching us, dissecting different truths about what we eat, how to eat, and all those kind of healthy eating habits. And today we're looking at this very exciting topic. It's basically saying your choices matters. Feel healthy, stay healthy. And I just really wanted to welcome you, Matty, to the Beautifully Becoming podcast.
Thanks, Noble. I really appreciate the invite to be a part of your show and a part of all the amazing work that you're doing. So thanks for having me.
Thank you. So quickly, I know I introduced you as a scientist, as a podcast host, and as a nutritionist. Any other thing, just, introduce yourself to us.
Yeah, sure. So I guess, as you said, I'm a scientist, and I grew up in the countryside with my mum as a nurse. And from a very young age, I was very interested in health and wellness and medicine and that type of thing. And I was very impressed that about humans. Humans were amazing. We created this amazing medicine. And it wasn't until I worked in cancer research, and I did that for about 7 years in a hospital, that I realized that disease medicine is not designed to heal or cure anybody, which might be a very shocking thing for people to hear. But most people go to the doctor to get their drugs to maintain their situation. Not to get any worse, but not really to get any better. And the problem there is because doctors are not trained to help you change your behavior. They're not trained to help you change your lifestyle. They're not trained in nutrition. And most chronic diseases, when we talk about chronic, I mean cancer, dementia, Alzheimer's, Parkinson's, diabetes type 2, all of these diseases are mostly diseases of privilege. And what I mean by that is they often are very high in countries that eat a Western diet, a high carbohydrate diet, lots of chocolate, lots of lollies, lots of deep fried food. And so when I realized this at the hospital, and I went to the cancer page of the World Health Organization years ago, and the first sentence said 90 to 95% of cancer is caused by diet, lifestyle, and smoking. And I went to my professor and I said, why isn't this hospital not a building of diet and lifestyle medicine? And he laughed at me and just said, if it was that easy, we would have figured it out. And there's a whole conversation about why that information was suppressed. But yeah, from that point, I was like, oh, this is not good. And I did all of this research about the pharmaceutical industry. And I decided to become a nutritionist because I realized that one of the biggest things people could change was their food, because obesity and being overweight is one of the biggest precursors. It's the biggest predictor of getting any one of those diseases that I mentioned. And so I thought, oh, I could help people lose weight. And then I started putting on seminars and I started speaking at events all over the world about nutrition. And everywhere, in every country that I spoke, every single person already knew what they should be eating. And I was like, oh, I thought the reason that they were overweight and had a disease was because they did not know. And now I've talked to all these people and everybody knows that vegetables, meat, fruit, nuts, seed. Everybody knows that that's a good idea. So then I was like, why are they not doing this? And then we go to the next layer, which is their belief systems about themselves and their family and their food and nutrition. And so now that's where I really work. I'm sort of an emotional eating coach or sort of a food behavior specialist that helps people change these beliefs and ideas in order to start making better choices. Because like we were talking before we hit record, like everybody knows what they need to do. The question is, why don't they?
Wow, we're just really gonna go right on it. But I just want to know, like, prior to getting all this research done, did you like what was your life like? You know, did you like, was there any trigger? Was there any defining pivotal moment that made you feel like, I know you worked in a research, you know, but was it a pivotal moment that made you be like, oh my goodness, this is what I want to do? Like,
yeah, that's a good question. I think I grew up in the countryside, and none of my family had ever been to university, and so I got into forensic science was what I got into, and it was the reason I walked that path was more because it would be silly to say no to an opportunity. And I didn't really think about it very much. I just this path just kind of happened. But growing up was challenging because I was in a family that had a lot of violence when I was much younger. But I was also very lucky in the sense that I had everything I ever wanted. I mean, my family wasn't wealthy, but mum and dad always made sure we had everything. I was an elite athlete as a teenager. I was almost a national level swimmer here in Australia. And so that was great. But yeah, a part of my journey was just, growing up in a very violent home, which, is things that I have now processed and worked through and come out the other side. But that kind of stuff, that trauma really negatively affected me. And it's probably got a lot to do with the reason that I'm on this path, because I'm very passionate about the truth and being lied to. And when it comes to health, wellness, medicine, the food guidelines, that's corporations lying to us. And that's why my podcast, How to Not Get Sick and Die, was created, because it's about truth. Like, there's episodes where I talk about the history of a lot of these businesses and the history of how products were created and medicine was created, and it's very dark. And so I think the trauma as a child made me into this man that wants to, always search for the truth and uncover the liars and point to the bad guys. Do you know what I mean?
Wow. And I'm just so thrilled at, all of the things you're sharing, and I'm really excited because I'm really going to learn. For me, coming from a place, from one of my rock bottom moments, I started having this crave for like junks. Okay. And it was basically something that I consciously, it was almost becoming a habit. And I noticed it was emotional eating. It was kind of like, so I was finding peace with it because I was always like enjoying it. And for me, that was really something that was creeping into me little by little, but I was able to stop it at certain spot before it became a habit. I could have listeners who are really kind of like suffering from emotional eating. And the question is, how can I stop it? How can they stop it? So I just want you to really touch on that.
Yeah, that's a big question. And thank you for, thanks for sharing and touching on your challenging story as well. So I think the first thing to understand, and this is when I work with clients, this is what we have to do first, is that I think a lot of nutrition advice, diet advice, medical advice, it's about changing the future, and it's about changing today and the future. And there's a problem with that because we can't change the future if we don't understand the past. We can't understand how we do anything unless we know why we are in the situation we are in. Because only then can you pull it apart. It's like owning a car. And a mechanic might say to somebody, oh, changing the water pump is really easy. But to other people, they will be like, because I wasn't in the past when I saw the car put together, it's not easy to me, and I don't even know where the water pump is. So it's the same for ourselves. So the first step that we have to figure out is, why does this situation currently exist? And yes, of course, we can link it to trauma. We can simply link it to advertising. The companies spend billions of dollars every year advertising in very strategic ways to us. And so if you combine trauma, you combine convenience, which is, a massive thing. Like, you can go in most cities 2 minutes from your house and buy all of the worst things you could possibly ever put in your body, right? So if you've got convenience, and then the big one is that putting sugar into our body produces dopamine and serotonin. So they're two hormones that are the happy hormones. Dopamine is that sense of that feeling you get when you hug somebody, when you have a victory at work, or something really positive happens. And so the reason that as a trauma response, a lot of people go towards food that is not good for them is because it gives them this dopamine hit. It gives them this sense of like comfort, happiness, and they go towards that time and time and time again because it's the only happiness in their life. Or the other way to look at it is that in a modern world where we've got so much dopamine accessible, and I mean not just food, Facebook is designed to do that. All the apps on your phone are designed to trigger your dopamine. And in Silicon Valley, they have hundreds and hundreds of psychological engineers that are creating these apps and these foods so that they are addictive, and they make them addictive through triggering your dopamine pathway, which again is your happiness pathway, your hormones that make you feel good. Now, the other thing is that we normally get dopamine and serotonin from activities that take more energy. So we've got to actually hug someone. We might have to go to the gym and achieve something. We might have to work. Like go to work all day to finish a task. And if you think about it, why would you do those tasks which have a greater amount of effort required when you can just walk 2 minutes, spend $5 and get dopamine hits all day? Do you know what I mean? And so, and that's why we're in this sort of tricky situation about understanding the past. If people can start understanding that they go towards these foods because, and like you pointed out, many people start eating these foods in lots of, in very high volume during a situation which was traumatic, or when, or maybe they just grew up in a traumatic environment. And the reason is because amongst the chaos and the pain, they're looking for safety, they're looking for happiness. The confusing thing in the modern world is that we go towards these foods for good reasons and bad. You go to a birthday and there's a birthday cake full of sugar and there's soft drink or soda, and then you break up with your boyfriend or you have a fight with your partner and you go towards the exact same foods, right? So it's really confusing. So I think the first step is understanding where in your past did you move happiness from the things that it should be, like you being successful, you having healthy relationships, and you being intimate with people, all of those types of things. Where did you move it from there across to food? And then we start identifying where the emotional eating began.
Wow. Okay. So that's basically the moment of self-awareness, being in awareness of, okay, this is where I actually started this. And then when we get to understand this, it's kind of easier to stop, because it's the stopping aspect that I want us to touch on. How can we really stop? Is this something we can just consciously and say, you know what, I'm stopping this right now, I'm not going to do it anymore? Or is this something that is more like, okay, gradually, or tell us about it?
Yeah, sure. So I think every woman listening, and maybe you too, Noble, knows that just stopping has never worked. Because the reason my business exists is because the women that I serve have been on 5, 10, 20, 30 diets. And they're here because they're like, when they ended, they weren't sustainable. I couldn't do them for very long. I ended up back, and they go from like a healthy weight, and maybe it's not about weight. Maybe it's about energy levels. Maybe it's about blood sugar. Maybe it's about diabetes. And so wherever they're at, they find that they get better for a little bit, and then they get worse even further on the other side of the diet. And so usually after 5, 10, 20 diets, they're actually bigger. more bloated, more like lower in energy than they've ever been before, and they just feel really gross. They've got no confidence. And so the reason that my programs exist is because we work on this emotional eating for the first half. It's a really deep psychological investigation into oneself. So we do that bit that I just talked about, investigating the past. Where did these things come from? Now, to get to your question, can we just change them? So it's possible. It's possible to just change them, but it's very difficult. I really believe that there's two types of people also that should be mentioned. There's emotional eaters, and then there's sugar addicts, which is a real thing. Sugar is more addictive than most illicit drugs, and it's been proven in clinical trials. So we've got to distinguish between the two. Emotional eaters can progressively do it over time. People that are genuine addicts must do it just like they would be getting off alcohol or drugs or anything like that. So I work with emotional eaters, and so the way that we do it is once we do that exercise where we know all of the things that happened in the past and every situation in our daily life that means that we go towards sugar, what we do is we figure out a list of options, and I call it the routine swap out options. And the idea of the routine swap out is that every time we have a trigger or a moment that triggers a cycle that will lead us towards sugar or poor eating choices, that we make a different decision. See, conventional diets will just say, just don't eat it. But we're just pretending like the trigger will never happen. And we're all human. We all have challenging days. The trigger is definitely going to happen, right? At some point. So instead of you allow the trigger to happen, rather than just trying to use willpower to pretend that it won't, and you go towards this list of options. Now, because it's a different experience, it'll feel strange, but the idea is that we're trying to produce the same dopamine and serotonin situation, but using healthier options. And what I mean by that is not necessarily food. It might be movement, might be a walk around the block. It literally might be hugging a partner. It might be doing 10 star jumps or 10 push-ups. And you can do a couple of things. It could be even longer. It could be to have a shower. It could be to have a bath. It could be to ring a friend. All of these kind of things that make us feel good that are not food. In the beginning, that will be challenging, and sometimes it won't work because you're a human, We don't get it right all of the time when we're not perfect. But over time, we go from eating sugar every single time, and then slowly we go a little bit less, and then we get to a point where we're in total control. And that's the goal, to be in control of the food that you put in your body. And when you do put sugar in your body, you make that choice rather than being controlled by it and just being like, oh, I can't stop. You give yourself permission. And when you get to that stage of giving yourself permission, it just happens far less, because usually by then we've developed self-love, self-respect. So you're making far better food choices. And when you're doing those routine swap outs, you're experiencing dopamine and serotonin in really healthy ways. So you don't need to go towards sugar because you're filling that cup. Does that make sense?
Yes, it actually does. So I get it. So instead of kind of like swapping it off with something else, like another food, we can just kind of like do another thing more like, taking a walk or exercising, doing a bike ride, and okay.
Yeah, and all of those things will be unique to you. So I've been doing this for a couple of years now, and I have like a master routine swap out list that's got about 300 different things on it, because what's a positive experience for one person will be different for another person. So and I guess the other thing too is there's also the nutrition side, because obviously I'm a nutritionist as well, is that like sometimes when we're hungry or cravings come up, we actually, because we're not eating correctly, we're hungry, and we shouldn't be hungry all day. And the guidelines that we're directed to follow for nutrition is usually eat sugar and carbs all day. Have cereal, then have a morning snack, then have lunch, which is usually like pasta or some kind of sandwich or roll, which has got lots of carbohydrates as well. And the problem with these, the carbohydrates are not bad because vegetables are carbohydrates, but refined carbohydrates are bad, which is like bread, pastas, these types of things. And what that causes is a lack of protein. And so if we have a lack of protein, and companies are perpetuating the belief through society that we should eat less protein. It's not true, because it causes you to be hungry. It causes you to crave sugar. So protein should be the most important thing that you put on your plate. Because if we just try and manage the emotional eating with emotions, we'll get most of the way there, but we have to back it up with the correct nutrition sources so that your body, your biology is actually working in your favor.
Wow. It's been really very insightful. And I'm just really thinking about like a listener who is very chubby. She really wants to lose some weight, or he wants to lose some weight. By all means, he's tried everything and it's not working out. What's going on? Can you explain to us?
Yeah, good question. I mean, the body is very complex and it's different for everybody. But I can speak generally about what generally is the issue for many people. And so the reason that we gain weight, it's not necessarily about calories. It's also about the conversation about what we're putting in, which I was just sort of starting to talk about there when we talk about putting in sugar and carbohydrates. So when we put in sugar and carbohydrates, and when I talk about that, I mean things like pancakes, ice cream, toast, bread, all of these things which come from refined grains. It could be lots of rice, it could be lots of buckwheat, this type of thing. So when we put in lots of those things, it puts sugar into our blood, and when we put sugar into our blood sugar goes up, and then insulin is a hormone that stores blood sugar, right? It stores that sugar. It goes up. Now, every time that goes up, it means that we're storing body fat, but it also means that the body fat we already have is staying in storage. So we can't actually burn body fat if insulin is up. And you don't need to put much food in to spike insulin. So even if you're eating, and I've worked with women that have this experience, they're eating very low calories, but they can't lose weight. And then if we look at the food that they're putting in their body, they're putting in these refined carbohydrates, which mean even though they're low, they can't burn their own body fat because insulin is so high that it's keeping body fat in storage. So again, this comes back to the protein conversation, which is, we shouldn't be having toast for breakfast. There's literally no protein there. We shouldn't be having lots of sandwiches because there's heaps of refined carbohydrates in those grains. Now, it's not about never having these foods, but if we're talking about somebody that wants to lose weight, then we need to shift the focus to the protein. And when I talk about protein, I mean eggs, I mean steak, chicken, mostly animal-based products because they're high in protein and also fat, which is exactly what we want to be putting in, and we want to lower the carbohydrates, but not vegetables. Vegetables are great. We want to have vegetables. If it looks like it came from a farm, it's probably a good idea.
Wow. Okay. That's really a good one. And honestly, I just want to know, what goes on in our minds when we know what to eat and then decide to eat the other thing, And there's this saying that, if you know what to do and refuse to do it, it's the same as not knowing. And what goes on when I decide to, instead of taking the salad, I decide, I just want to go for the burger. What's the thing? What's the chemistry going on in our mind?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So I like to think about it or describe it as a fork in the road. So we're walking along our path, and then there's a fork in the road, and down the left-hand side is our old habits, our old beliefs, and it's like, we go, which is the easy option, right? Because we've done it so many times, and in our brain, it's actually, because we've done it so many times, the neurons are really thick. The neurons that send the messages are really thick because we've thought those thoughts many times. The electrical impulses have moved up and down them many, many times. And because we think that all the time, it's literally like on this fork in the road, it's like looking left and seeing a 4-lane highway that's perfectly covered in tar and looks amazing. It's really smooth. And then we look over to the other side, which is the new behavior. And it's like a tightrope that goes over a canyon, and there's crocodiles in there. And it's like, why would I go that way when I can just go down this 4-lane highway that looks really easy? So we get to this fork in the road. Now, the thing is, most people don't know that this fork in the road even exists. They're on autopilot. They're automatically just walking down the left-hand side. So the first step is to realize when you're at the fork in the road, which might be, say, lunchtime, right? Or it might be when you get up from your desk and you want a snack, or it might be when you go for a walk, or wherever it is, and realize that, oh, I'm repeating a behavior that I've done many times, and this is the thing that I want to change. So you want to acknowledge that this is happening. That's a very good first self-awareness step, to be like, oh, this is happening right now. I'm in the middle of it, because that's the point you can finally take control and take it out of autopilot. And then, is to look over to the other option, which is might be a healthier food. It might be a routine swap out idea. And you've got to tell yourself that, like, this is going to be a new experience. I'm going to give myself permission to go through this new experience and know that it will feel a little strange because we're doing something different. It won't feel totally normal. And this next part is really crucial because it's what actually helps us commit to the change, is that you give yourself permission to come back and go down the left-hand side, repeat the old behavior if this one doesn't feel good. Now, the reason that we do that is because conventional diet culture tells us to just use willpower, be really strong, and just never do the bad thing again, or never eat the sugary food. And when we talk to ourselves like that, it's like talking to a child and saying, don't do that. And the child says, watch this. I'm going to find a way. I'm going to find a way to break the rules. So when we give ourselves permission to actually do the food or eat the food or do the thing that is not helpful, we take away that stigma. We take away the like, oh, but I want it. And our inner child is like, no, we want the food. We want the sugar. We want to do the thing. It's really easy. Why don't we just do that? And as soon as we take the power away from that inner child, we go through this new behavior, or we eat this new food, and then on the other side of it, we're like, oh, I could have gone the other way, but I don't really want to. But if we had have said, you cannot have the other thing, we would get to the end of it and be like, oh, I really want it. Like, this was all right, but, so it's about making sure that at the fork in the road, we take the power away from our inner child who is looking to break all of the rules. So it's like this conversation in our head that we're having with the child part of us that's always like, no, do it, break the rules, do it. So we want to take that whole situation away.
I really, really kind of get that. And one of the things that just got stuck in my head is, sometimes when we want to start a new habit, it's always good to really kind of like start it small, because this is I know my listeners can't really see my description, but this is basically the new habit and this is the bad habit, right? And then by the time we keep on, it's kind of left for us to decide whether or not we want to do the new good one, the new healthy habit, or possibly keep to what we usually do that we don't like, and we're frustrated whenever we do it. But and again, it just starts really small, and the more we do it, the more we expand it. The more we do it, the more we expand it. And when it's really kind of like very expanded, it's difficult to go back. Because we're used to it, it has become a habit, and now it's really challenging, trying to go back to cultivate a new habit. And do you want to say anything about that?
Yeah, no, I totally agree. I think that's one of the other things that is the problem with conventional diets or diets for the last 50 years is that they say on day one, change everything. Throw all of the things in your cupboard away in the trash. They say go and buy all of these foods that you've never even heard of before. And just like you were talking about, like when you were talking about that, I thought of like the idea of our comfort zone, right? And that it's like when you want to make change and you want to make it permanent, you want to just step a little bit on the other side of the line of your comfort zone. If you take a giant leap, you will freak out. Literally, your nervous system will find the environment and all of the behaviors so unfamiliar. And this is why diets don't last, because you change so much that your identity, your personality, your inner child, all of you is like, this is so foreign, this is so strange, this is so overwhelming. You know what? We're just going to go back to where we were before. So I totally agree that we want to start with a small habit. We want to start with one thing at a time, which is why I have the little catchphrase, which I use all the time, which is one tweak a week. So we make a small change each week and we master that change, and then we move to the next one, because going on any health journey is about changing the health of your life, not changing your health of the next 6 weeks.
Yeah, absolutely. And, just kind of looking at the body as a gift. I want you to, and we just have to take good care of it because it's our body, right?
Yeah.
It's not anyone else's. And the fact that sometimes we're just so hard on ourselves, sometimes we know the right thing to do, but we don't do it. We know that this isn't good for me. Like I'm just gonna give an example. Like someone who smokes, right? They just know that it's really not good for me, but they still do it regardless. And what goes on in our minds whenever we do that kind of thing?
Yeah, actually, when I worked at the cancer hospital, literally every day that I would walk into the building, out of the front door, near the front door, there would be cancer patients. They would be in their hospital gown with their drip, with the pole that their drip was on, smoking. Like, people literally smoke themselves to death. They were in the cancer hospital and they still couldn't stop smoking. And so I think it's about, because remember, there's always two parts of this, right? There's the emotional part, and then there's the biological part. So, and it's the same with sugar, it's the same with cigarettes, it's the same with drugs. There's the emotional connection to the process and the habit connection. And there's also the fact that, our cells are actually addicted to this stuff. And with cigarettes, one of those chemicals is obviously nicotine, right? So I think as well, when we reflect, we've got to understand that we've got to work with that biological addiction and make it happen over time. And the thing is that people know that giving up those things is going to cause pain. Like, especially cigarette smokers, they can get really big headaches, they can get sick, they can actually start having lung issues and coughing more because their body has become so dependent on these chemicals. And actually in the cancer hospital, they actually tell some people to keep smoking because if they stop, it will put their body into shock because they're so addicted. And it's the same with sugar. Is that, like, it can put your body into shock to remove these things, and you can get massive headaches, you can have all sorts of issues. However, the thing is that that's a short-term pain, right? And so I think a lot of people don't want to experience the pain. So if there's some way, and we can definitely do it with emotional eating and food, is to draw that pain out over time so that it's much less. And you can just deal with a little bit of it each day, because otherwise we have to rely on willpower. And most humans that I know, willpower doesn't last very long for almost everyone. So we have to try as best we can to remove willpower from the equation. But also acknowledge that, yes, change does take a little bit of discomfort. If I want to be a better person, I have to work harder at being a better person.
Absolutely.
So, like, we can make it as easy as possible, but that doesn't mean that it's going to be easy, if you know what I mean. It means that there's going to be challenging moments. There's going to be times where we fall off the bandwagon and we go back to old habits and we have to start again. And a lot of people feel like if they fall off the bandwagon, they've failed. And they give up. They just like, I made one mistake one day, so it's all over. And that's this all in or all out thinking, which doesn't help anybody. It's like, well, hang on. We've just lasted 6 weeks. You did great. We've had 1 week which wasn't great. But if we look at that, 6 weeks versus 1 week, you're still winning. This is amazing, right? So how about on Monday next week, we start another 6 weeks? And maybe this time it turns into 7 or 8 or 9 weeks. And so, we want to think of ourselves as a human. We're flexible. We give ourselves permission to make mistakes because that's okay. But if we come down on us like a parent and say, you can't make mistakes, be better, be perfect, then just like I was talking about before, the inner child will find a way to break the rules. The inner child is always pushing the boundaries, and the parent is always trying to suppress. And they're the conversations we often have in our head. We talk to our child, and then we try and parent ourselves. And this is what creates yo-yo dieting, because it's back and forth and back and forth. So we want to change the whole way that conversation happens, because as soon as we're in that battle, the child always wins. The child will always win. It'll go find the sugar. It'll find a loophole. It'll find an excuse, to push the boundaries and break the rules. So, I think to go back to your initial question about like giving up something like smoking or making those changes, is that you need to truly want better for yourself. If you're going to quit smoking or stop eating sugary foods or lose weight because your friend is doing it or because your mum is telling you to do it, that's not deep enough. That won't last. You need to truly want a new chapter of your life and be willing to work for it. And working for anything that you want is never perfectly easy. It's challenging, it's difficult, there's going to be some hard times, but the rewards will be there. And the good thing is the rewards come in dopamine and serotonin. They make you feel good, they make you feel great. And the other thing to mention is that I really strongly believe that you are the average of your 5 closest friends. And so the truth is, and it's an uncomfortable truth, is that you actually might need to change the people you spend time with. Because if you spend time with people that have the same issues, the same problems, you won't change them, because as soon as you start changing them, that social group will judge you. They will say, why are you doing that? Are you trying to be healthy? Are you on another diet? And they'll say all these really demeaning things, and you'll be like, oh, well, I better not change because the people I care about will think negatively of me. And I've worked with people that when we dug into their psychology, we found out that the reason that this particular woman kept self-sabotaging is because her whole family is overweight, and she thought, if I lose weight, I won't fit in with my own family anymore. And so that's some really big stuff. So when you really want to be better for yourself, you need to understand that you also need to create some new relationships and new models in your life to surround yourself with.
Wow, this has been really, really powerful. Great wisdom shared. Oh my God.
I'm glad. I hope it helps somebody.
Yes, absolutely. And we're just really kind of about wrapping up, but let's really talk about intermittent fasting, right? I heard a lot of people say, you know what, it's very healthy because, the body keeps walking up. You just walk the body up whenever you eat something all the time, and all of a sudden it might shut down or whatever it is. It's a little scary. Can you just kind of point us towards the right direction?
Yeah, sure. So I think a lot of people think of intermittent fasting as a new diet fad, but the truth is every human for all of human history has been doing intermittent fasting, because all it means is the cycle between eating and not eating. So if you go to sleep every night, you're intermittent fasting, because there's a period of time which means you're not eating. So the important thing to note is that in the modern world, because we're eating incorrectly for most people, it means we end up eating too many times a day. So if we eat the wrong foods, they cause cravings, they cause hunger, rather than solve those problems. And it means in an hour or 2 hours, we're looking for food again. In an hour or 2 hours, we're looking for food again. And a study that was released last year in the US found that people were eating on average between 6 and 11 times per day. And so we know that obviously the world is very overweight. There's lots of disease that's being created as a result of being overweight. So what we need to do is we need to eat, 1, better nutrition, and 2, eat less frequently. And the way to eat less frequently by using intermittent fasting is to pick different times in the day when you eat. Now we've got to make sure that we should always couple that with proper nutrition. Otherwise we'll be hungry and have cravings. And if we think about it, it's only been in the last 100 years that we've had this massive access to food. Before, about 100, 150 years ago, people ate once, twice, maybe 3 times a day, and then sometimes they would go multiple days with no food, not because they were starving, because it was normal for humans to fast all of the time. And then if we go, a few centuries before that, or a few thousand years before that, the tribe would go and hunt. They would catch the beast, the community would finish it and eat it, and then they might fast for a couple of days or a week before they went and hunted something else. And it was normal. Nobody was starving. And so we're in this situation in 2022 where the opposite problem is true. The opposite problem is we eat too much of the wrong thing too many times a day. So the idea of intermittent fasting and introducing a different fasting and feeding window or eating window is to just start reducing the amount of time in the day that we're eating. Now the sweet spot is different for everyone, and it depends on your history of dieting and the goals that you're trying to achieve, because I don't want people to make the mistake of thinking more fasting is better. Like if women doing water fasting, they can really mess with their hormones. So you need to find a healthy spot for you. And again, like I said before, 1 tweak a week. So you don't want to start and just go really, really extreme, because you might damage your metabolism. It might be really hard to lose weight. So for people listening, I would just say, figure out where you are right now. Just like I said with the emotional eating stuff, figure out what the past is to know what's going on right now. So how you do that is you just literally, when you wake up, you just write down the time that you eat every single day. And that might be 7 a.m. And then write down the time that you finish eating for the day. And by eating, I mean putting any type of food or nutrition or beverage in your body. And then it might be 7 p.m. And so if we eat at 7 a.m. and we finish eating at 7 p.m., then our intermittent fasting ratio is 12 hours and 12 hours. And then we want to move forward 1 hour the next week. So you might go to 13 and 11. And then the next week, you might go to 14 and 10. But of course, as I said, this has to be supported by good, healthy nutrition, with making sure that protein is the feature of every single meal. So it's hugely beneficial, but don't go too far or do too much, because you might cause more problems.
Absolutely. Oh my God, this has been so good. Like, this has been really, really, really like inspiring and insightful. And I just really kind of like want you to really, I'm not sure if this is what happens, you should know better. But a lot of people say when you eat too much, or when you eat a lot, possibly like 6 to 10 times a day, the body, the digestive system, everything, they just keep walking nonstop. Yeah. And there's a tendency that these systems are really going to break down because you've just been making them walk so much. I don't know. What do you think about this?
Yeah, no, I actually totally agree with that. I think one of the things is that, for people that get diagnosed with diseases, and I remember walking through the clinic every single day at the hospital, is that the whole waiting room was overweight, like significantly overweight. And so what that tells me, as somebody that understands the body, is that there's been a very long period of time that those people have put food in multiple times a day, many times a day, and their digestive system has never stopped working, right? And you might be in a situation where you've put so much food in, you eat from early in the morning to late at night every day for 50 years without giving your gastrointestinal system, your stomach, your whole internal organs a rest, because we want them to be able to repair themselves and recover. And that's the other thing with eating too late at night, is that when we go to bed, that's when a lot of our rest, digest, and repair functions, like our immune functions, help recover the body. So if we end up going to bed with food in our stomach, that causes problems, because it means we don't sleep correctly. And I believe sleep is the most important health variable. If you want to lose weight, if you want to fix your disease, if you want to fix anything, fixing sleep should be first. And then we don't allow all these immune functions to occur during our sleep. We don't allow fat loss to occur. So fat loss, often most of that happens in our sleep. We breathe it out as carbon dioxide. And so, yeah, we want to make sure that we're giving our gastrointestinal system a break, which is one of the benefits of, intermittent fasting, is that you just increase the amount of time each day that you give your system a rest so that it can recover. However, like I said, we don't want to go too far, because we can actually trigger emotional eating because we get too hungry or anything like that. So we've got to find the sweet spot that's right for us in the middle.
Wow. And as we begin to wrap up, you mentioned proteins, and what are other examples of better nutritions that we can really eat or begin to eat?
Yeah, sure. So I guess when anyone is building their plate at breakfast, lunch, dinner, any type of event, the first priority should be putting protein on that plate. And protein will, for most people, will be animal products. So it'll be steak, it'll be mince or ground beef, it'll be chicken, turkey. In Australia, we have kangaroo. I know in the US they have things like elk and moose. And so any of those types of animal meats are really, really high in protein. Now, there's also plant-based options as well, like quinoa is a really good one. However, the problem with the plant proteins is that whilst they're high in protein, they're extremely high in carbohydrates. And if we're in a situation where we want to lose weight, then we're in a tricky situation that it can be difficult. And this is the reason that there are many overweight vegetarians and vegans, because even though they're getting protein from these plants, those plants are usually wrapped in a case of very high protein. So to get enough protein in one meal of quinoa, you need 750 grams, which is almost a kilogram. Right? It's 3/4 of a kilogram. That's a lot of carbohydrates. So I think that we should be focusing on the meat as the primary source of nutrition, and obviously, cook it however you like, and use herbs and spices to flavor it, because that's the great thing. We can make the same piece of meat taste lots of different ways with different herbs and spices. And then when we do have carbohydrates, we want to have them from vegetables. So we want broccoli, kale, all these different types of things, carrots, squash, that type of thing. And also fats are important as well. So fat will be in lots of the meat naturally, but also things like avocado, coconut, nuts and seeds. So these are all of the types of healthy foods that you want to move towards.
Absolutely. And honestly, as we wrap up, this is a personal question. You don't look like you eat junk. Do you eat any kind of junk at all?
That's a great question. Well, it's just been Easter, right, when we recorded this. So yes, I totally do. But it's different in the sense that I'm in control of it. I can make a choice, and it doesn't happen very often because I've rewired my taste buds and my microbiome in my stomach, which is the journey that we take many of our clients on, right? Is to not only manage their emotions, but also reprogram their biology to move towards healthy nutrition. So yeah, I love chocolate. I love healthy food, unhealthy food, just like everybody. But because I've trained my body to be so healthy, now when I eat that stuff, I feel it. I feel heavy. I feel gross. I feel like a bit brain fog. And you notice that when you clear the system out, you don't want to feel like that anymore, right? It's like you didn't know how bad you actually felt until you got healthy. Because when I was young, I was like everybody. When I was at university, I was living on rice, pasta, and beer for like 4 years, and I felt horrible.
Oh, wow. This has been really like, oh my God. And this is just going to be one of the last questions. It's not the last question, but let's just kind of talk about like portion sizes. Because sometimes I'm really hungry and someone wants me to dish food for myself. I want to take a lot of food. And just because I am hungry at the moment and I am really kind of like dishing a whole bunch of food for myself. And those portion sizes really help us stay healthy.
Good question. I think the thing about portion sizes is that it doesn't matter if at the end of that portion you're still hungry. I've never met somebody that was like, I love my life because I'm hungry all the time. Like hunger will lead you to solve the problem with food, right? So I would say for most people, with people I work with, we don't weigh food, we don't talk about calories ever. It's not a thing we do. We don't talk about portion size. One thing we do talk about though is plate size and fork size or spoon size, because it can slow the speed at which the food goes in. And when we slow down and we chew the food more, because a lot of people just like chew 2 or 3 times, swallow the next one, and we eat so fast that we end up overeating and then feeling stuffed. So I think portion size should only be a conversation if the nutrition is not is correct and not working, which I've never seen happen. Because if we get the food right and if we get the timing right, and particularly for women that have a menstrual cycle, they have different needs. So as the weeks go every month, in different weeks, things need to be slightly different. Men, they can just be the same every single day. Women need to be more flexible. They have different requirements for different nutrition at different times of their cycle. So it's important as well to know or work with somebody that knows that cycle and can help guide you on eating correctly, so that you don't feel hungry after you've eaten.
Absolutely. And I just want you to tell us about your services, tell us about your coaching services, what you do, your podcast, and stuff like that. Any book.
Yeah, sure. Thank you. I appreciate that, Noble. So How to Not Get Sick and Die is my podcast. So you can find that on all of the podcast apps that exist, which is probably where you're listening to this show. So you can go check that out. I also have a program that I work with women and mothers called the Busy. I've got a Facebook group called the Busy Mums Collective, but the program is called the Ultimate Energy Upgrade. And so we go through emotional eating and then to nutrition. And so we take people from sort of feeling gross in their body, lacking confidence, and not feeling well, maybe feeling overweight or bloated, and we take them to a place where they're in control of their food choices, moving towards a healthy weight and feeling really energetic and confident in their own body, which they often haven't felt for a very long time. So the Ultimate Energy Upgrade is that program. And then the way to get in touch is through our Facebook group, which is called the Busy Mums Collective. So if you're a woman or you're a mother, come and hang out with us there. Or, of course, www.mattylansdown.com.
Whoa, I definitely will check it out. And I will be part of it. Honestly, guys, I know you can't really see Matty. He looks really fit. He's a practical example of someone who practices what they preaches, Like, I want to thank you so much for the incredible job you do. This has been really informative, and I want you to leave us with your perfect final last word.
Okay. I would say that, I guess as a single piece of advice for people is to start understanding your past. Because you just can't make any change in the right direction if you don't understand how you got to where you are right now. And it's like if you find yourself lost on a trip or driving, the first thing you do is think, where did I go before I got here? So if it's emotional eating, if it's maybe you're repeating cycles of being in challenging relationships, whatever it is in your life, figure out and give some thought to how did I develop this behavior, how did I develop this habit, and how did I end up here? And when you have that self-awareness, that's when you can begin to make change.
Absolutely. Matty, I just want to thank you so much for joining us today. Honestly, we've really learned so much. It has been very enlightening. This has been really powerful wisdom. This has been insightful, informative, and exciting. Thank you so much for joining.
Thank you so much for inviting me. I'm so grateful to have this opportunity to have this conversation. And I'm hopeful that your audience enjoys it and learns some things.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you for spending this time with me and the Beautifully Becoming community. I pray today's conversation reminded you that your journey has meaning. Your process is sacred, and God is still at work in you.